back to the Psalm 40 project. Today I'm continuing the conversation with Jim Boelkins. I love that rhythm because I see it in my own life and others too, that of faith developing under pressure, and sometimes that pressure comes at us unexpected or unwanted, and other times we move towards pain and suffering intentionally, and in both of those cases and in unique ways, the Spirit develops our faith in that. It's beautiful.
And I just want to add too that the worship here and coming and that aspect of our own faith development in our recent, it's actually been 17 years that we've been back at LaGrave. Started out, had a 34, 35, almost 36 year hiatus, and then back.
Yeah.
And you can't help but grow and be nurtured in your faith through worship at LaGrave. I can't say enough positive things about how much we love this church.
That's good. It's essential.
Yeah.
It's essential. As you think about, you mentioned Van Andels, DeVosses as some of the mentors that you've grown from in your life, and there's others as well. So as you think back to those mentors and LaGrave at that time, and kind of think about LaGrave today and maybe where we might be headed, is there anything that the mentors from your past would be cheering us on about and saying, yeah, that's what we anticipated? And
can I just preface that by just saying a little bit about who my mentors were?
Yes, please.
I would cite my mom and dad. When I thought about this, I've had a lot of different people that I've engaged with. But my mom and dad were not people that just sort of preached all the time and shared, but they lived their faith.
Yeah.
It was so obvious with my dad, who was a physician, who served as a mobile field surgeon in World War II, and was gone for over a year and a half. My mother was raising 3 children, and between the two of them to stay so consistent in their faith and their trust. There was no email, there were no text messages, there was only letters that could communicate. But I think the way I observed how they lived, my dad, I have visions of my dad after the war and growing up. He came home. Every night he got on his knees next to his bed and prayed. I'll never forget that. And my mom too, and she was a stay-at-home mom, but still very active and interested in children. That's part of why she was instrumental with a group from this church in founding Wedgwood. But I think their model of serving people, that's what my dad did. I have people in this church who come to me that remember my dad was their doctor and took care of them when they were kids. And he modeled what it meant to be a servant in the name of Christ. Both of them did. And so as they, if they would look at the church today, Dad having been on the building committee for the new church, was involved with it, they would be ecstatic to see how the church is thriving, how the church continues its caring role. My mother was worked in the deaconess group. She did that work.
Yep.
Engaged in Bible study here, active her whole life, and she cared for other people. And so I think that's, again, endemic in this church. So the concept of how LaGrave has stayed faithful to its mission and consistent, serving in this community and looking for ways to enlarge that would make them all really encouraged.
Yeah.
And I think too,
that
if they could hear Peter's Frog and Toad children's sermons, they would be overjoyed.
They would be.
Just like we all are. Those are for children, but they mean a lot to us adults too. Just know that.
I always sneak a peek at the congregation, and they're getting just as much joy out of those stories as anyone. Yeah, that's right. Related question, but I wondered if maybe there was a slightly different take. You having had the history that you have at LaGrave, what encourages you these days about ministry at LaGrave?
Yeah, I think the idea that we're continuing to think in a large perspective. I've always in leadership want to think big if possible.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge sometimes. You can be content and stay where you are. but people have a tendency to like the status quo. And I think this church continues to grow, but they do it thoughtfully. And over time, we have the resources to do it, have tremendous resources, both financial and personal, within this congregation that we could do a lot.
Yes.
And when I think of what the leaders back in the late 1950s that built this sanctuary, given what the old church looked like, took tremendous vision. And now here we are many years, decades later, and we have this opportunity with this new property to enhance and enlarge that vision. And I'm hoping that we can think big like those individuals did and not be afraid of it. So it's, I think back, in my own life, I've got opportunities to do things that I never felt I was even qualified to do. And I always think of Mother Teresa. She had this quote where she said, I know God won't give me anything that I have to do that I can't do.
Okay.
I just wish he didn't have so much confidence in me. And so nice. Sometimes we do just have to trust that God will help us do it.
Right on. Is there any question that maybe I should have asked that I didn't ask? Or that you'd like to respond to? Yeah.
No, when I think about the future and the opportunities that are in front of us, and we talk about that concept of a big vision, a verse that's been very part of my life in different positions is 1 Chronicles 28, verse 20, and it's from the Living Bible, but it's David's admonition to Solomon in building the temple, where he says, be courageous and strong. Don't be frightened by the size of the task. For the Lord my God will be with you. He will not forsake you. He will see that everything is finished correctly. And I think believing that and accepting that, we can do so much more. We just need to trust and have confidence that God will lead us in the right way.
Well said. Jim, it's been a joy chatting with you. I think we could probably spend another hour talking.
We could talk about a lot of things, some of the old memories from the church.
That's right.
But we love LaGrave and what it stands for. And I will just tell you that the whole process of adoption and what we went through in recent years, we could not have survived without the support of this church and the people here.
Thanks for sharing
But
that.
thanks for allowing me and calling me a senior.
You're welcome.
It hurts.
It hurts. But I added saint, so.
Yeah.